Welcome back to the show, guys. Today I'm going to break down 3 of my favorite stand sites. They're coupled with food plots, most of them. Tell why they're so good. Maybe you guys can find something similar where you hunt. This is the picket fence plot right here. You guys probably remember that deer. He walked out October 2nd, walked right out, almost right under the tree actually. Walked in right here and I shot him about right here feeding on clover. So that's the nice thing about clover right here in this spot. Any food source, it just gives you a little bit of time to get a shot at them. This would be a good spot with or without food because we got all kinds of food this direction. I access it from the south with a southeast wind, so it's carrying across the open food source. And then when you get back here to the tree stand, this you can see really dives down real steep right there. So your scent's carrying over that. There's just a deep draw right there. And so your scent's way up above. So for this setup, I decided that's the best thing to give up with most of the stuff bedded all through here, and even as far as a quarter mile there's cover that way that they can come from. Real good rut spot. They always come and go right here on top of this little knoll right here, and it sets up great for access. Like I said, I come in through there and you're screened with cedars, and then when you want to exit this in the evening, we cut a trail right there, and then you can go out backwards. Basically we go through the timber. In the evening you figure the deer are going to be out in the fields when you leave. Just sets up really nice for that. Like I said, we had the picket fence buck I killed here. We had that bearcat buck that could have definitely shot, just worked right through here, beautiful buck. That wraparound 8, that deer will be on the list this year as well. So 2 years ago, he shed an antler when we tried to hunt him. Last year he had a broken beam, so we didn't hunt him. So hopefully this year we'll put it all together and he's a nice buck to go after. I got 2 more spots I want to show you, so let's go check those out.
On, baby. I would say the stand site is money. They've been just piling right past us here, so we just gotta get the right deer. Come on, baby. Oh my God, 4 years. Whoa. I cannot believe that. 4 years hunting that buck. It was gonna take a stroke of luck, but hey, we put ourselves in the spot.
That's a fitting deer to take, first deer after losing my dad right there. That deer means a lot to me, just like Dad did, so that's pretty awesome. All right, here we are, spot number 2. You guys remember that Wolverine hunt probably. That was one of my most memorable hunts. I'd been after that deer for a long time. We got him right here out of this stand. Matter of fact, just right over my shoulder, here's where he was. And the idea for this was going to be primarily a morning spot because of the access is through CRP, which deer aren't usually in that in the mornings. And you walk a ravine, a ditch all the way down to a creek, and then you catch another ditch that comes right up to the tree stand here. So access is excellent. I mean, you could hunt it in the evenings as well as the mornings. And if you look at this on an aerial, it's a classic connector. There's a bunch of cover to the west, a bunch of cover to the east, and this little strip of woods right here connects all that. That's what's so good about this spot. Anytime you can find a connector like that, especially during the rut, they're excellent. I've also got food out here, about 2.5 acres, maybe 3 acres, corn, soybeans, whatever we plant on a given year. Primarily, I love it for morning when they come out of the fields and they're working this timber back and forth, hitting all the cover. The bucks are looking for the does, you know, and to cover this side. And that's exactly what Wolverine was doing that morning. He was just bumping around in this cover right here. He was just bird dogging that for a doe, and that's how we got him. So classic connector right here. Anytime you find a funnel like that, it's some of the best spots on earth. Now let's go to the best spot on earth, spot number 3, the crab spot. Well, now we're down here in the infamous crabs plot. We've got a rich history down here. You guys probably remember the crabs buck, that big old walrus of a deer. We had the decoy hunts this last fall right here. Rachel shot a buck here. Oh, wide 9, shot wide 9 right here. So a bunch of really good bucks, and this spot's got just a bunch of stuff going on. You'll notice with all 3 of these spots, one thing they have in common is there's cover around them. You know, either on one side's good bedding cover, or some cases all the way around. That's important because that's getting them there during daylight. If you're hunting in an evening, they don't have very far to go to get there. It's still in daylight. So if they're traveling 3/4 of a mile, that would make a big difference. But this has got a lot of features. You got a north-south fence line right here. It's a great connector travel route. You got an east-west fence right here, so you got the same thing, travel route that way. You've got the food in the crabs plot, all the bedding cover. That's a big timber, you know, probably 40 acres right there. And you know, you set this up. We've named this Death Row now. This little farm access road right here is so good. And you set this up with food. So whatever you have in the crabs plot, I'm gonna have something different over here. So you're trying to create a situation where if they want soybeans, they've got to travel this way, or if they want brassicas, whatever, they've got to travel back and forth through here to get from one to the other. I mean, it just sets up beautiful for that. A lot of times we'll have corn in one of these, soybeans in the other, and switch them back and forth, and so they go back and forth. It's just one of the better spots I've ever hunted. Like I said, you've got all these features coming together. You've got these drainages coming down. They've got timber in them. You got 2 or 3 of those coming together. You know, and I've heard people say too, if you follow the way water flows and you look at the conversions, those are always good spots. The deer do follow them. You know, like these draws, water flows down, all that stuff, when it pinches down, those are spots you want to be in. And this is a great example of it. One of the best spots, like I said, I've ever hunted. You know, part of being ready, having all this stuff set up and being ready for this fall is doing your shooting. You know, you've heard me talk about that a lot, how important it is to practice and do the pressure practice. And so the first part of that is going to be setting up your bow. We're going to go into my second segment of the RX-8 setup right now. I've made a new rule this year. I'm going to shoot 20 minutes every day. You know, I get busier every year, and so sometimes that gets lost or gets forgotten. You don't get to it. So every day, I want you guys to join me. Shoot 20 minutes every day, and you'll see by the time season comes along, you're going to be a better archer. You're going to be more prepared. And if you implement the pressure practice like I like to do, you know, go to these 3D tournaments, go to the ASA shoots, you know, have a competition with your buddy. When you do all that kind of stuff and you shoot every day like that, you're gonna see when you get to fall, you're gonna be a better archer, more calm at the moment of truth. You know, that confidence is so important when he walks out and you've shot like that all summer. You know you're gonna shoot exactly where you're aiming. I appreciate you guys joining me again. Thank you. All right, guys, we got the initial setup done on the RX-8. We've got the draw length set. We've got our 75% let off. We've got the rest time, the rest is on, D-loop. Now we're just gonna hit the sight. We've got these new Go-Stix they just came out with, the 2.0s. So let's get that done today. Thank you. So these rotate now. These are awesome. So you remember the old ones, if you're hunting in a blind, you had to screw them on. If you're going in a tree stand, I always took mine off. So now with these, you loosen them up, and then you figure out how to rotate them. There you go. They got different positions now. Or you can fold them all the way back out of the way. That's what I love right there. So if you're going from ground blind to a tree stand same day, you don't need to take them off and just fold them back. Oh yeah, it started. Or is it? Don't feel like it. All right, let's check it for level. No, sir. Tighten that up a little. Most people probably aren't this tedious about it. You just slap it on and go, but my bow has to set level, man. I can't help it. Now, if you guys like more weight on the front of your bow, this little guy right here, you could add more weight to it. You can get different size threads. You can just keep adding weight. I'm gonna leave it like that for now. All right, now let's try these bad boys out. Just like that, and they've got spots that they pop into. Right there. But for this, I might just leave them out. All right, next thing we're gonna do, let's put my sidebar on. You guys always have seen me shoot with a sidebar. It's not gonna be any different. I love that extra weight. That's how I beat rye so bad. It's that extra weight does it. I know some guys rye have asked how much weight I'm running on my back bar. I can't remember from the season. I wanted to say it was like 8 ounces. We'll find out right here and now. Set the ounces. About 9. Now if you're hiking out west, carrying your bow, I don't know if I'd add all this weight. I'd probably run it as light as I could, but for stand hunting after whitetails, it doesn't bother me to run a little heavier bow and be a little more accurate. Okay, now when I set my bar as far as the left or right, after I level my sight and put it on the bow, I will just hang this from a string, and then I will adjust the weight either way so that that hangs level just naturally. I know some guys like to have it actually twist one way or another. They think that that's more consistent, having weight one way that you got to level up, but I like my bow just to hang level, so that's the way I do it. Not saying either way's wrong. That's all right. We will put her right there. Got a step stool for my bench. I can see what the heck I'm doing. One thing I do want to do is mark this site. Where's that other marker? I might need it darker. Because if you take this out and you can't tell where there's a mark, where it's been, you're really going to be upset at yourself when you can't figure out which one you had it in. So I just do that.
Sounds like a lesson learned.
Yes, been there, done that. I'm like, which one was that in again? And you're sitting, you know, obviously your whole sight tape's off. I guess you could just keep moving it until your sight tape was back on. You'd figure it out, but. Okay, we have a sight on. The one thing you want to, we're going to level this up too. The one thing you're going to want to make sure is that the holes right here coincide with your sight being most of the way up. If you're going to want to shoot 100 yards or farther than that, you want to start with your sight nearly all the way up so you got all this range of motion. Otherwise, say you have it set here and that's on target, well, you're only going to get, you know, 50 or 60 yards out of your sight tape. Level up the string, and this is the way I set the level for mine, is level up the string first and level the sight to that. Man, that's pretty darn close right there. Now if you look at my strings level here, then you look at my sight, the bubble on my sight, it is off just a little bit, so we will tweak that. You'd be splitting hairs to get that any closer. So that's the first part of the second axis, is making sure that your sight bar is level. Once you have that level, then you can level your scope up. Right here on either side of your sight bar here, you've got these locking screws that'll just lock you right in where you want to be, and then tighten her up. Get the scope at this point. I think she's coming along nicely, so we got Sight bar is level. We've got the scope housing leveled up, looks good. Now there's one more adjustment, third axis adjustment we got to check. So that's what this little guy's for. We'll do that at full draw because sometimes the bow twists in your hand a little bit as you draw it, depending on your pressure, grip, and all that kind of stuff. You know, each person's a little bit different, so each person needs to do this.
What is the third axis adjustment?
Third axis is going to be the scope, whether it's rotated inward or outward. And so when you shoot uphill or steep downhill, that's what the bubble is showing you at that point. So it might be off just because your scope is either twisted in or twisted out. So you think you're out of level, so you're tipping your bow left or right when you're really, maybe you're leveled up. So that's what it's setting.
Sounds pretty important, specific to bow hunting.
Yeah, exactly. Out of a tree stand, if you're trying to level up your sight and it's already level, but you don't realize it, it's just you never adjusted your third axis. So super important. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw back, be at full draw, and I'm going to use this threaded rod right here. So we know that the scope is already leveled up on the second axis. This threaded rod, I'm going to, at full draw, I'm going to put right down this rope, which is my plumb bob. And so if it's leveled up on the plumb bob, then my level should be level. And if not, then we got to adjust the third axis. But the other thing that happens when you draw back without an arrow, it tends to cinch your D-loop together. That's why I don't like doing that without an arrow. Also, like Rice said, the dry firing of the bow is a possibility. So, all right, let's give her a look. So we're trying to simulate a steep uphill or downhill shot. So I'll just aim down. And that bubble is just on the left side at full draw. So we're going to adjust that just a wee little bit. Everybody's going to love my step stool, I can guarantee that. The talk, a conversation. I've seen you get that, Rye. That's like when I say, don't film my rusty fenders on my truck, then the guys just go, like, thanks a lot, guys.
I mean, you're 6'3", like, you know.
There. Whew.
Happy?
That's the one. Took a few, but we got it. It was quite a bit of adjustment if you think about that, how far off that is. I mean, if you're shooting steep downhill like that, it's going to make a difference. Suppose we ought to put a peep sight in here? Might help for accuracy. This is what we shoot for hunting. 7/30 seconds is my peep size. I like that as far as the halo around the scope, and also big enough to where it lets in a lot of light in low light conditions. You know, it's getting close to dark. Everything you want to know about your bow. If you're not hitting impact moves, whatever, start checking things. You go back to all this, tells you, you know, where your knocking point's at, where your peep sight's at, all that kind of stuff. So here's a good one right here. Distance from the center of your peep to the center of the arrow at full draw is 4 inches. So that's the same on every bow. It doesn't matter, your axle to axle can change because you're checking it at full draw. That's going to be the same distance. So we need 4 inches from center of arrow to center of peep. Pretty darn close right there. Let's go with that. It's an important measurement there, Rye.
So if I was a person who didn't have that written down, what do you think would be the best way for me to go about getting that?
I would just draw your bow back, eyes closed, anchor what feels natural, open your eye, see where your peep sight's at, and then just keep adjusting.
And then measure it and write it down so you don't have to do it again.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm gonna try something a little different. Just tie in both sides and then go ahead and wrap the peep into there so it can't fly out if you were to dry fire it or something like that. This is actually a new way to tie this in. I seen Dudley doing this, so I'm not going to take credit for it. Tried a bunch of different ways. We're going to try this way. It's just over and under knots. Pretty simple. Now, one thing you missed there, Rye, when I was wrapping these, the last couple wraps, I went back over the serving. So when you burn that down, you're not right over your string, you're on the serving. You melt that down, stick it down. Need another trash can over there, I can tell you that. So far, I like this method, as long as it doesn't slide up the string. That's the one thing that bothers me. That's the nice thing about like the way Perkins does it, where you wrap it into the peep and then the half hitches, that will not move. And I'm doing about 24 wraps before I start to come back over the serving. Can't wait to get this baby out in the field and let her eat. 24. Now I'll start to come back over the serving, so we'll burn that down like I was saying. There's tape. Okay, now we're going to end this with a square knot. Okay, then burn her down. Just make it match on both sides is all I'm going for. Okay, one more important thing, we got to tie the peep into the string. Make sure that can't fly out. Very important. Safety precaution.
That's why I'm gonna bring my bow to you.
Or bring your bow to me.
What do you charge? What's your hourly rate? Oh gosh.
Yeah, exactly. You remember the rule on this, Rye? Always do this, always.
Oh. Oh. No, I didn't.
There she be. We've got the setup ready. We're ready to paper tune. That'll be my initial tune, and then I'll go to walk back tune. I might bear shaft tune as well, or broadhead, depending on which one I want to do that day. Let's do that next week.